welcome back.
We are 4 Struggling Filmmakers. That was Noah. My name's Emma. Joined with Noah and I is Jimmy.
Hello.
And James.
Hello.
Let's kick it off with some recommendations. Now, I know half of us went to the cinema this week together. What did we go and see?
That is the question, eh? What did we go and see, Jimmy?
We, my good friend, went to your old stomping ground and we saw, I'm just going to say, Black Widow.
That is the name of the film. Well done.
I thought it was pretty good. I think
It is pretty good, yeah.
It's a 4 out of 5 stars for me, I would say.
Maybe not that high. But I'd say for a solo one, it's one of the stronger ones. I'd put it like just under Doctor Strange.
Scarlett Johansson is the weakest thing about it. Everybody else is 10 times more charismatic and blows off the screen. The opening action sequence is also...
The opening action scene is probably the best bit of the film.
Yeah.
That's the bit I was like, that is surprisingly really good.
I would say that the opening sequence and the opening credits set up this to be like a dark, more realistic Marvel film, and then it kind of doesn't really do that on the whole.
It's consistent up until a point where then the third act hits, and then it's just like, okay, now here's where everything goes crazy. Jimmy, both you, yourself and I agree that our biggest pet peeve with this film is the invulnerability of Scarlett Johansson and the fact that it just looks like she could have died at multiple points and then she just gets over it like it was nothing.
100%. By all rights, she should be dead. I would say, yeah, that and the other biggest one is just that everybody else. Florence Pugh is way more charismatic. David Harbour, Rachel Weisz. But that's as much a writing issue as an acting issue. But yeah, just to wrap it up, very solid, good story, great action sequences, well worth it.
It's the most 7 out of 10 film I've seen this year.
I'd agree with that.
I wasn't going to do another recommendation. I thought the joint one with Black Widow would be fine. But last night, I watched Miller's Crossing. I started watching it 4 years ago, got bored and turned it off. Yesterday, I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit down and actually watch this. It's probably one of my favourite Coen films now.
Really?
Genuinely fantastic. The writing in that film is so sharp and dense, and everything about it is just so good. Everyone plays their character to a T. I just love the sequence of events and how everything builds up to like a great conclusion. And like the noir gangster aspect is both funny and very effective. Anybody else got a recommendation?
I watched Naked Gun. Very funny film. So funny. But yeah, everyone's seen Naked Gun, haven't they? So
I watched Naked Gun 2 recently.
You mean 2.5?
Oh yeah, 2.5, sorry.
Randomly, I ended up rewatching I Am Legend.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Will Smith, of course.
And I actually really enjoyed it. Yeah, if you just take it on face value, I think it's a good film. I watched it after I'd got off a film shoot, and I was absolutely exhausted, sunburnt to hell, and it was a really good film just to sit and watch and relax. Yeah, so that was our recommendation, which means we are
at the end of the episode.
Going into the main body, which is what, Jimbo?
Cars.
2.5 of us are quite big F1 fans. I put you down as a half now because I know sometimes it's hit or miss. But James is an absolute not F1 fan.
I don't care. Sorry.
So we moved it away from F1 week to make it more exclusive, and we've gone for Cars, but not the popular cartoon animation Disney.
Not Pixar's Cars, not Cars 2, not Cars 3.
There's no Larry the Cable Guy here, but there is Michael Caine.
So, who's going to be the first one to get off the finish line?
Well, it's obviously got to be James, isn't it? Because he ransacked the week, so...
Ransack the week? I can ransack it. Oh, God, where do I even start now? Jeez.
How about Back in the Future?
Yeah, 1985.
1985. I wasn't real. I didn't exist yet. A couple years later, I did, and then a couple years after that.
Couple years.
Fine. All right. I don't know maths very well.
Decade and a half.
Fine. So let's. 14 years. That right? No. 13 years. 13 years after 1985, I was born. And then a couple of years after that, I watched Back to the Future and I loved it. And it's now one of my favorite films ever. And it gives me an opportunity to talk about it because it has a car in it. And it's probably one of the most iconic cars of all time in cinema. when me and Jimmy went to go see Black Widow, we were talking about Back to the Future briefly, and I described it as a perfect anomaly of a film. It's a film that on paper shouldn't work, is way too conceptually weird, has elements that are really, really strange, especially for a film in the 80s, but it manages to capture lightning in a bottle so well that it somehow ended up making one of the best films ever made. How mental is that? I don't really need to explain the plot of Back to the Future, do I? Can I just make it quick? Marty McFly gets back in time in DeLorean, and then he's trying to fix his parents' marriage, and then he wants to go back in the future. Back to the Future. Boom, there you go. That is like omitting many details, but that's the long and short of it.
Is it the perfect blockbuster?
I think this film, to me, is actually perfect, especially in the sequences with Alan Silvestri's score. Everything works together to the point where it's like nothing else beats that. But you know, Back to the Future, everyone knows Back to the Future. You've probably seen it. So we're not talking about the film Back to the Future. We're talking about the car in Back to the Future, as it's car week. So I'm going to be talking about the DeLorean and why it works so well in the film. Most famously, the time machine in Back to the Future was initially not going to be a DeLorean car. Can anybody tell me what it was going to be?
Telephone box.
No,
No,
that would have been
Dylan said, isn't it?
plagiarism.
What is it? Was it going to be a car? Was it going to be a different car?
It wasn't going to be a car.
Don't tell me.
Bowling alley.
Bowling
You have
alley,
to bowl
no.
yourself down.
Dartboard.
A
No.
cafe.
Cafe, no.
Hot tub.
Hot tub, no.
That's hot.
Baby
hot tub
monkey.
A
time machine.
yearbook.
Yearbook, no. That would have been interesting.
Just on the wiki page trying to find
The
it.
Overlook Hotel from The Shining.
No. All right.
Oh,
That's,
that was a
that's
good
enough
guess.
guesses. It was a fridge.
Oh.
Oh, that's close with a telephone box.
It was, and I'd tell you exactly. You were very close to telephone box, but you know, fridges and telephone boxes are two completely different things, so I didn't give it to you. It was one point a fridge that was going to be driven on a truck into a nuclear blast. And that's how he would have traveled back in time.
What? Indiana Jones style.
Indiana
Yeah.
Jones and the Temple of the Crystal Skull. Temple of the
And
Crystal
the
Skull.
Temple of the Crystal Skull.
Back in the day, fridges had like a latch on the inside. So when
You
you
can get locked in.
yeah, so if you're on the inside of a fridge, it locks from the inside so you can't get out. And Steven Spielberg didn't want kids climbing into fridges and freezing to death.
Oh, good guy Spielberg.
Yeah, good guy Spielberg. So he was like, you know what? No, we're not doing a fridge. Try something else. And so they chose a car instead. But what car to use for such an important part of the film? DeLorean as a car in real life was a lot more style over function, and that's putting it lightly. It was rushed into production before a lot of the performance testing was done. It had awkward gull wing doors. It had engines that overheated. And it had steering that was not great. It was either way too sharp or was floaty and didn't really work. It undersold as well. It like barely sold anything. They declared bankruptcy a few years after they went into production. I only found out this today. Apparently, the owner of DeLorean, Mr. DeLorean, I can't remember his name, he was arrested by the FBI for drug charges because apparently the business was failing so bad. He went into the drug trade.
Oh,
So he was
no.
arrested on suspicion of having 60 pounds of cocaine.
That's a
Yeah.
lot.
You would have to have been on 60 pounds of cocaine to design that car, to be fair.
Exactly. But
It will
apparently the jury found him not guilty. So, you know.
Did the Back to the Future help them with any of their?
You are definitely right. When Back to the Future was rolling around, they was trying to figure out all the ideas for it. Bob Gale, who was the producer of the film, wanted a car that resembled like a futuristic spaceship. And he chose the DeLorean because it does kind of look, you know, kind of funky. It's got the gull wing doors that look interesting and like the front of it's good. Because I feel like if it was just a car, it would have been like, okay. But the fact it's got like a hodgepodge stuff of like all this like high-tech machinery just like plastered onto it. You've got like massive vents at the back and the flux capacitor and the dashboard that all lights up and the whirry noises. That's what makes the DeLorean what it is. In the film, the DeLorean isn't used constantly. It's used in like two big bursts. One like just going into like the end of the first act and one at the climax of the film. And those are like the two main action beats of the film as well. That's where all the exciting stuff happens, where the Libyans come and shoot them. And at the end where they've got to plug everything in at the right time, and he's going down the road. It's like, oh, will he get there in time? And oh, he's not going to get it. And then he slides down and he gets it right at the last minute, and all the music swells, and it's like, best scene ever. Best scene in that film is that scene.
That is one of the greatest scenes in cinema. I'll give you that.
I rewatched it today. Like I didn't have time to rewatch the entirety of Back to the Future, which sucks. But I've seen it enough times. But I rewatched that scene. Nothing beats it. Everything leads to that point, and then it's the balance of tension. Usually, and Jimmy can attest to this when we were watching Black Widow, bringing it back again. There was action scenes in that where it kept on cross-cutting a lot, and it kind of took weights out of things that should have had more focus.
Particularly at the end, yeah.
Yeah, particularly at the end. That's where I was at. But with this, you literally have two things to focus on. You have Marty going towards where he needs to go, and you have Doc Brown plugging in the thing and going down the sliding down to try and plug everything in. That's what works.
Yeah, well, that works really well because one thing is affecting the other. Like, the tension is built because if Doc Brown, if he doesn't grab that cable and plug that thing in before he hits that pole, he's just going to drive into a brick wall.
It'd just be a McFly on the wall.
It'll be a burnt fly.
He's been McFly swatted.
He'll be McFried.
McFried! Yay, that's the one.
Finally! Yes!
But yeah, the Back to the Future DeLorean, iconic, fantastic, excels that film even higher than it needs to be, personally. That's my notes done. What do you guys think?
The perfect film.
The perfect film. Thank you, Noah.
Yeah, come on, Jimmy. It attracts every member of an audience, boy, girl, old, young. It's got the perfect script. Never misses a beat.
The perfect script.
It's got.
I mean, he's kind of right.
Incredibly fleshed out characters. I mean, do you want me to continue?
I mean, you can if you want. There is so much to say about why Back to the Future works that we could go for ages. Because that's why, even though you were like
reservations, then
I think it's one of the best entertainment films. It's not high art, is it?
Why not?
That's not.
Why not?
Yeah, why not, Jimmy? Shut up.
Because it
doesn't have anything to say.
No, it does have stuff to say. I agree. The script's fantastically tight. The characters are. Marty McFly has a pretty good character arc because he learns he finally takes responsibility for himself and becomes grateful for the way he's born. I don't think it. For me, it's not a top 10 film. It's probably not a top 50 film.
Not a top 50 film.
No, James.
I'm out of here.
There's a lot of films I would prefer. Like, it's not in the same league as like a Blade Runner or Once Upon a Time in the West.
You're comparing apples and pears there, mate.
It doesn't.
Well, the man doesn't want apples. He wants pears.
I was going to say this film's a pear, and I like apples, and it's as good as you can get for non-high art film, I would say.
Okay, so taking it away from the opinions, because we know that film is subjective and we're going to all think differently, taking it back to the car. So so you know the car, like, it goes and then disappears and then comes out in flaming fire, like we can see behind James.
Classic. It's got the old fire trails going into the future and the past, and then it comes out all icy.
Which, can we just appreciate that the pyrotechnics and everything, pretty good for its time, I'd say.
There is so much about the car that's iconic. Like, the car's not even in this shot, and you know it's the Back to the Future car because it does this.
But the one thing that stands out to me is this film scarred me for being worried that car was randomly going to come out of the sky and hit me.
Really?
It's going to come out in the future.
I had a fear of walking along empty roads and pavements in case a car came out of nowhere and hit me. Not like in my adulthood, but like when I was like younger. I can picture it very vividly because it really did stick with me. So pretty good. It's a good film, and the car is definitely, like, it was a good pick for this week because the car is definitely the centerpiece of the film.
And don't forget the 1950s cars as well.
Yeah,
they're brilliant, isn't it?
You can see them kind of here and here.
Because that's always like a glorified part of American history, isn't it? The 50s.
It destroyed the Irish car industry, did DeLorean.
But even if it did that, it still made a cracking car in this film.
So, thank you, James, for talking about Back to the Future. Moving away from high art entertainment.
I also said the term popcorn film, but there you
We've
go.
got this is a film called Drive, and it stars your boy Ryan Gosling. In daytime, he is a stuntman, and then come nightfall, he is a getaway driver. It's a Nicholas Winding Refn film. He is the Danish guy. Actually watched his debut the other day, which was a bit coincidental. Really a guerrilla-like Danish crime film. Basically, the plot is he meets a girl called old Irene. Turns out she's with a boy called Oscar Isaac. He's involved with some dodgy people. The dodgy people lead to James L. Brooks and Ron Perlman and
Albert Brooks.
Albert. Yeah, that's the one.
James L. Brooks wrote
The Simpsons, wasn't he? Ryan Gosling's character, who we don't actually know if he has a name. Yeah, he gets involved in these dirty people. The first hour or so of the film, it's kind of like the start of like a love film, really, where you got him and Kerry Mulligan, and then the next sort of 40 minutes or so is just this most brutal, violent crime film, and it's really a change of pace from that first initial part of the film. And the cars that Ryan Gosling drives are not quite as entertaining or unique as the DeLorean. I think he just drives a Chevy.
Chevy Impala.
But this is obviously quite a boots on the ground kind of film compared to Back to the Future. It's a little bit more realistic, shall we say. And this is like the gritty LA lifestyle, isn't it? Or the underworld. So all the cars are quite expensive because they got a lot of money in that place. Did you know as well, Ryan Gosling picked Nicholas Winding Refn?
Really?
He was cast as the lead, and he got the choice apparently just to pick whoever he wanted to direct it.
Wow.
Fair enough.
I think he made a good decision because it's pretty good director as Nicholas Winding Refn.
Yeah.
And this film is the start of that sort of period where he made these really good films, I think. Oh, well, some people say Only God Forgives isn't very good, but I haven't seen that for a while, and I didn't mind it. But I quite like The Neon Demon. Oh, I like Bronson as well.
Oh yeah, Bronson. What a cracking film that is.
It's a pretty beautiful looking film, it has to be said. It's got some amazing visuals and lighting. It's got that sort of cool look to it. That is quite synonymous now, like the neon lighting and everything. Cliff Martinez is really lovely score as well, accompanied by these amazing tracks like Under Your Spell, Real Hero, Night Call. How did I forget that one? The Chromatics one at the beginning, Tick of the Clock, yeah, what a film. And cars are important to this film because without cars, how does Ryan Gosling get his money?
There is a fun fact about the cars in this film. This film was sued by a woman who went to the cinema for basically misselling the fact that there isn't many cars and much carness in this film. And I believe she won the case, actually.
She won the case?
I think so.
On what grounds?
On what? Yeah,
She said, look, all the adverts show all this car chases because it just shows the action sequences because that's how marketing works. And there was nary a car chase to be found except for the two.
So it was like
misrepresentation.
Misrepresentation of
I mean, I'm pretty sure I remember reading it was successful. It definitely happened. Somebody look it up. But yeah, this angry middle-aged woman was upset that it was about romance and crime. It wasn't about cars.
That's mental. How can you use footage from a film, showing stuff in the film, and then get mad when those bits in the film aren't as prominent as you think they are?
I think she was like, I paid money to see a film called Drive. I expect to see driving.
Yes, so I can tell you the story. I've got it up here.
Oh God.
It's on the Guardian. So a Michigan resident files suit against distributor of Ryan Gosling thriller Drive, claiming the film had very little driving and is anti-Semitic. So there's a little bit more than the driving.
I've completely
so it must be
so.
because Ron Perlman plays a Jewish character and they make references to him being Jewish.
Apparently, the film substantially contained extreme, gratuitous, dehumanizing racism, directed at members of the Jewish faith and thereby promoted criminal violence against members of the Jewish faith.
Can you imagine the judge being like, this film, it does not have enough cars in it. She's like, yeah, but what about the anti-Semitic stuff? I said this film does not have enough cars.
Why do all your American accents sound like they're in the deep south?
She said Michigan.
Every American's foghorn leghorn.
We've swapped to Business Insider, where I have some more quotes relating to cars. So the person's name was Sarah Deming. She said, Drive bore very little similarity to a chase or race action film for reasons including but not limited to Drive having very little driving in the motion picture. It was neither fast nor furious. There wasn't enough driving and no Vin Diesel. She wants her ticket refunded and a notice of the public of the film's extreme racism, basically, and anti-Semitism.
I don't remember it. It was definitely a plot point, but I don't remember it being extremely anti-Semitic.
It's not. There's Ron Perlman's character is Jewish and he's in charge of the mob.
There's lots of references to him being a Jewish guy who desperately wants to be Italian.
There's more.
Oh,
so,
it doesn't end.
So we've now changed from Business Insider to Screen Crush. So this happened in 2011. The case got thrown out in 2012, but the plaintiff was not so easily deterred, levying new charges. So originally it was just the driving, and then after it got thrown out, she levied the new charges of anti-Semitism, but not just to the film, but directly to the judge for throwing out the case.
Oh
my God.
So then the case went to a new judge in 2013, who agreed with the first judge, but this wasn't the end of the journey. So now representing himself, the woman's lawyer brought a new case to federal court, alleging wide-ranging conspiracy between actor Albert Brooks, Sony, Netflix, Amazon, Apple, Google, and AMC. The corporate lawyer has fired back with a motion for finals dismissal, like all the company's lawyers were like, what? Because basically she's claiming they're all anti-Semitic.
Who comes out of Drive and is like, this is the most anti-Semitic film I've seen since maybe Birth of a Nation? Like, who does that?
She's been going on for 6 years.
She must have a lot of free time.
More than that, because I can't see her like how it went after that.
That was a tangent I was not expecting. That is mental.
I didn't. Well, there you go. I'm glad I brought it up.
But yeah, Drive, eh? What a film.
Yeah.
I think we've said there is all to be said.
So yeah, I felt as it was Cars Week, I could finally talk about one of my faves. One of those films I watched way back in the day when I was like, oh, I see film in a different way now.
Steering away from Drive and into something a little bit more traditional, a little bit more, traditional. We'll go with that. I was going to say spicily British, but I'm not sure.
Spicily British. The British aren't spicy, mate.
We're going back in time to the late 60s. We're going to 1968, and we are going for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So it's a 1968 musical following inventor
Caractacus Potts,
transforming an old Grand Prix car into a magical flying car that teleports him and his family to a new kingdom, which is ruled by an evil baron who wants to gather up all the children. It's based on an Ian Fleming story, but James is telling me that the film's written by Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
So again, we're seeing these very like popular British names coming through. The Caractacus Potts is Dick Van Dyke, and then we have and someone else, Sally. Then we also have Sally Ann House as Truly Scrumptious.
I'm sure
someone else.
The Sally Ann House estate will be suing.
That's the story. Let's talk about the car. Ian Fleming took his inspiration for the car from a series of aerial engined running race cars. God, that's a mouthful. Built by Count Louis Zabrowski in the early 1920s. And the car was actually called Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, hence the name. And the way it got its name is because of the sound that the engine made.
Chitty 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 Bang Bang.
For the actual film, there were 6 different cars made by the art department team. Only one of them was fully functioning. So they had like 5 like art props and then one that ran properly. And that was actually a fully functional road car with a UK registration license, and that had a Ford V6 engine. Dick Van Dyke is the one who drove the car, obviously him being the inventor.
Cracked the spots.
And he is quoted as saying, "The car was a little difficult to maneuver with the turning radius of a battleship." So then the other 5 cars were built by the studio. They were smaller, not quite road going, but kind of. So one of them was a transforming car. There was a hover car, a flying car, and an engineless version for the trailer work. And then just the smaller road one. It's not the only vehicle in the film I want to mention. Obviously, there's the... Jimmy, you might want to close your ears because I remember you saying you're a little bit scared. But there's the infamous child catcher van.
Oh no, that was Noah. I love the child catcher.
No.
I am. Let me be clear. This podcast. Well, maybe not this podcast. This podcaster is pro child catcher.
Oh, get lost.
Jimmy Bennett.
Gumdrops, all free.
I used to have nightmares about him as a kid.
For any of you that don't know, the child catcher is basically fulfilling the wishes of the Baron for like a childless state.
Oh, I'm looking at images of him and I don't like him.
That's another interesting vehicle, because it changes, doesn't it? It starts off as this.
Yeah, he's got it all covered in sweets, I remember, and then it's like, haha, it's a cave. Fuck you, children.
Emma, what is your favourite song film?
What's my favourite song?
Yeah.
I like the one where they're under the sea.
I don't remember that one.
That's Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, mate. What you want?
Yeah, you're right.
Bobbing along.
That's the one. Scrap that. No. My favourite one is Truly Scrumptious. Sorry, yeah.
Truly.
Because that's in the
That's
little
Mary Poppins.
factory, isn't it?
No, that is this film. Every song in the film is a banger. Like Truly Scrumptious is great. Pretty Chitty Bang Bang. Toot Sweet Toot Sweet. Me Old Bamboo. That's one of my favourite routines. But the
routine. Can you just imagine?
Jimmy does it in his room when he falls.
Me Old Bamboo, Me Old Bamboo, Bamboo. But no, the hands down best song, which I find really emotional, is of course Hushabye Mountain. The gentle breeze on
Sally Ann Howes is truly scrumptious.
I'm not sure you can say that though.
No, she is.
That's not wrong, Jimmy. Jesus Christ!
What did I just say? I said I really like Hushabye Mountain. It's
no,
emotional.
No, that's
you
not
said you approve of child snatch.
Yeah,
wait, he's not.
He's like, you support the child snatcher, and you just say, "Oh,
I think he's a great character.
Goldfinger's in it.
Goldfinger."
Hey, no, he's not.
The guy who plays Goldfinger.
The guy who plays Goldfinger is Mike Myers.
No,
oh, Goldfinger.
Goldfinger.
I'm
the
sorry.
actual version, Jimmy.
Gert Frobe. Yes, Gert Frobe. I think is the Baron, isn't he?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry.
Christ, Jimmy.
You were thinking of Austin Powers, weren't you?
Well, I'm guessing they used a lot of Bond actors because it's Ian Fleming, isn't it?
And Roald Dahl wrote several Bond films, including You Only Live Twice.
You only live twice.
Yeah, it's produced by the Broccoli person, isn't it?
Yes, Albert Broccoli.
Albert Broccoli.
But yeah, and I like the windmill in the film as well.
Oh yeah, they live in the
I know that's got no relation to cut. Well, it kind of does if you think about it, because it's kind of like a mechanic. Because the windmill, he's like a proper cool inventor. So his like bakery always all automated, and I thought it was really
it's
cool.
very cool.
Like, yeah.
I've seen it live on stage.
You get out of town.
I think I remember more about the stage show than I do about the actual film.
Yeah, I'm actually interested because I've not seen it on stage. What do they do with the car?
Some very impressive stuff. I'll give you that. From what I remember, this is a while ago now, so I'm gonna have to dig into the recesses of my mind to remember. But I remember they use like for a lot of the bits where they're driving around, they use like a little RC car and they're driving around the stage. But like for the main set pieces of like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, they use the full car. So like one of the main bits I remember is where it's fallen off the cliff. And it's like, oh no, we're gonna crash into the ocean, we're gonna die. And then it like all spurts the wings and it flies up. Hey, look at that.
It's awesome, isn't it? I actually haven't seen this probably in about 10 years, and I still remember.
I do not want to revisit it.
It's 2 hours 20. Stop exaggerating.
2 hours 20, man. It's really
2 hours 20.
I did not realise it was
2
that
hours
long.
20. No way am I ever watching that again.
It goes by in a flash. Reassessing this film in my adulthood, it's definitely one of the most affecting films. It's actually really powerful. You don't realise as a kid, but you're like, poor Dick Van Dyke is this single dad trying to bring up these two street urchins, also known as his children. But I'll tell you what, the scene in which he's trying to raise money at some point to fund his inventions, because he's a pretty crap inventor, let's be real.
I don't think he's a crap inventor.
Well,
He's
no,
a flying
he's
car.
awesome, but he's not very good at selling his stuff. He's like the dad from Gremlins as well. It's the scene in which the kids are like, "Oh, Daddy, we've what are their names? Sonny and Jemima, Jeremy and Jemima." Yeah, they're like, we've been collecting special treasures over the years, and we love them, but we love you more, so you can sell them to fund your inventions. And it's like a bunch of shit. It's like half a shell. They're like, this is the comb of a mermaid, and all this stuff. And he's like, well, kids, this is really nice, but it's not worth anything. He's like, but they're like, why, Daddy? He's like, it's worth more to us than it is to them. I could never sell it. And then they go, will you sing us a song to go to sleep, Dad? And then he says, a gentle breeze on Hushabye Mountain, and that bit happens. And then you sat there as an adult, and you're like, and you cry a little. It's fine.
But hey, Jimmy, let me just say, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang isn't a high art film.
Ooh.
No, it's probably not. But
boom, shut up,
I didn't mean that as an insult earlier. I think Back to the Future is a fantastic popcorn film. And I love popcorn films. I think this is a fantastic popcorn film.
That's me zooming over the finish line with Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Good film, good vibes, good cars.
Thank you, Emma. Let's stick to the 1960s, a very solid decade for film. We Brits, right, as Chitty Chitty Bang Bang has shown, we know a thing or two about car films, right? And I think in the late 60s, we made, I think you could actually say, the definitive car film. A couple of days ago, it was the Euros, right? The finals. And we lost. We lost to Italy. And so there is no better time to watch the 1960s, not the one with Mark Wahlberg in it, the 1960s Italian Job. And we get some revenge on them Italians. Often regarded as the greatest British film of all time. What's the plot of The Italian Job? Very quickly, Charlie Croker is incredibly fit Michael Caine. He's just come out of prison and he's like, I'm going to do another job. This was based on true events at the time. In the late 1960s, the Chinese gave millions and millions of dollars in gold to Italy to build a Fiat factory in China. I think that's roughly what was going on. Britain was really upset because we actually had a car industry at the time, believe it or not, and we didn't want that to happen. And this film's a bit of a fantasy about that. So Charlie Croker goes to, I think is it Turin?
Yes,
Italy.
Turin.
That's it. And he comes up with this brilliant plan to steal all this gold. There's only one foible to that plan, and that is the Italian mafia. And then basically, as you get to the last third of this film, it's a celebration of British cars, of mayhem. There's this massive traffic jam. They're stealing this gold in these kitted out minis, and you get probably the best extended car sequence of all time. Goes on for literally about 40 minutes. Earlier on in the film, they bring some really nice cars over to the job, and they all get crushed by the mafia, so they have to use these minis. Some iconic lines in the film. You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. That's one. Everyone remembers that. The other one I really like is when these thugs are going around his house to beat him up, and he says, you wouldn't hit a man with no trousers on, would you? And then they say, well, put some on then. And then he throws this big bear at them. It's really funny. I'll open it to the floor. What do we think of The Italian Job? James saw it for the first time the other day, which is a crime, and he also rated it only 3.5 stars out of 5, which is another crime.
I think this film, for the most part, is good, and then the ending is fantastic. The ending is what makes the film as good as it is, I think. If it didn't have that car sequence which just goes on and builds, and that ending, perfection, that ending.
Scientifically, would it be possible to get that, or would they just be completely...
If they do it one at a time and like slide it, then maybe.
There was a sequel written which explained how they got the gold.
Is that canon though?
Yeah, well, the fuel was in the back, so they ran the motor till the until the bus was out of fuel, but it was just enough for them to get out, not to get the gold. So they have to jump out. Bus goes over. Mafia take the gold. Italian Job 2, stealing the gold from the Mafia.
Yeah, see, I feel like that's one of the issues I have with the film. The Mafia just sort of disappears because it's like, oh, we have all this issue. You can't do this job because we'll destroy your cars and kill you. Now what are you going to do? And then they do it anyway. And then the Mafia just is like, oh.
You are not wrong. The Mafia are a bit toothless in this film. They kill someone right at the start, and then they threaten them that one time, and then we barely see them again for the rest of the film. You're right. It's true.
I'm about to commit a bigger crime.
What?
I haven't seen it.
Oh!
It's on my list, and I have seen bits. Like, I know what you're on about, and I know the trailer and stuff, but I've never sat down and watched the whole film.
Emma, if you want to really piss off Jimmy, I dare you to watch the remake first.
No, don't do it to yourself.
First half is also really quite misogynistic, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I know it was the 60s, obviously.
I was going to say misogyny is never okay. Let me point that out. But
it was the 60s.
The film, it was the 60s.
Yeah,
and it was accepted.
It was the old cheeky chappy mentality, like, oh, it's all a bit of fun, but really it's not.
Which was never right. Yeah. None of us are saying that, but we are saying, like, in the context.
I think Michael Caine sleeps with about 30 women in the first sort of 20 minutes of the film.
He has that bit where his then girlfriend's like, oh, as a getting out of jail present, here's like 10 women. Which one do you want? And he's like, haha, all of them.
It's an amazing line, but it is terrible when he's like...
I think what makes that line work is just the cut afterwards.
There's an openly gay character in the film, though, which is quite ahead of its time. Camp Freddy.
Yeah, Camp Freddy. But I mean, his name is Camp Freddy, so how, you know...
But he's a powerful man, and they don't make fun of him for it. What's everybody's favourite bit of the car chase then, except for Emma?
When they go up that museum, is it? Or that...
Yeah, onto the roof of that building.
Yeah, is it a museum? I don't know.
The accelerator?
Oh, Emma.
Oh, Emma.
I like the bit where they're going through the sewers and they're almost flipping over.
Fun behind the scenes fact, the stunt drivers really, really, really wanted to do a 360 around the whole thing.
They definitely could have.
They get so close. They
do get close.
Just couldn't quite do it on the day. But they're desperately
I love it. It's like,
and the water bit's cool as well when you're going through the water.
That is awesome. My two favourite bits are the deleted scene, which I spoke about earlier, but it's probably been cut. So just after the bit where the Italian guy's like, if they plan this, they can find a way out. Hard cuts to an orchestra playing the Blue Danube in an ice rink. And it's so good. The minis come in and the police Fiat's coming from the other end, and they do synchronized car like acrobatics on the ice ring for about 5 minutes. It's awesome. It must have taken so much to choreograph that, and you can see all the tire tracks where they've been doing it all day. And then they cut it for pacing, clearly. But actually getting into the back of the bus is an amazing sequence where you're not quite sure if the last one's going to do it. Is there anything more I can say about The Italian Job? It's such a feel-good film, though, isn't it? I do not have... there's few films, if any, I have a better time watching this, particularly when I'm watching it with my dad. It's just like, you're cheering at the screen moment after moment. I honestly think it's the greatest car sequence. I don't think it will ever be topped, because it's all practical, it's all really... If you want to have a good time to the greatest extended car sequence of all time, go and watch The Italian Job. Get a blooming move on.
Well, ultimately, who's going to win in the race? The driver from Drive, Marty in the DeLorean, the family in the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang thing, or whoever is in the Mini Coopers.
The DeLorean is not going to get you to the start because you're only going back to the future.
What if you could take that off though? Just because that.
I was going to say, like,
I said, like, if that was the case, then it would have to go at like 87 miles an hour constantly. Because if that one bit more, then it's like, oh, I guess I'm going somewhere else.
And Chitty Chitty Bang Bang can fly.
Yeah, so
I'd say in a straight drag race between a Chevy, a DeLorean, a Mini, and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Sorry, a Mini carrying like 3 tons of gold, so it's pretty heavy.
Well, let's just say it's just a person in it for the purposes of this.
I'm actually maybe back in the Chevy.
I'd say the Chevy would probably
Well,
take
he
it.
drives more than a Chevy.
It is a souped-out Chevy Impala.
And
as
also,
well.
he is the only one that is a getaway driver.
Yeah, and it has been heavily tuned. Like I think underneath, it's like got a different engine and everything. It's just a Chevy body.
If I had to podium it, we've got number 1, we got our Chevy and driver. Number 2, I'm gonna say the DeLorean and Marty. And then 3, I'm backing Chitty and Mr. Potts.
Oh,
What?
Because
The car's from the 1920s.
it can
Over a Mini Cooper.
fly.
3
no,
Mini
the
Coopers.
Mini Coopers first.
Yeah, but
They
you've
gotta
got-
get a
you've got-
blooming move on.
How about we do some quick honourable mentions of cars that we like in films?
Christine.
Christine, oh, that's a
yeah.
good one.
Christine, we've got Christine.
Christine's a fantastic film.
What about Duel?
We forgot Herbie,
The Ferrari from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Grease
I like the
Lightning,
Ghostbusters car.
Lightning.
the Ghostbusters car.
Oh yeah.
Bumblebee.
Bumblebee.
Thelma and Louise had a car, didn't
They
they?
did.
The Bluesmobile.
The Bluesmobile.
Batmobile.
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 Yeah.
Good one.
Oh, the bullet car. It's the Mustang, Ford
It's-
Mustang.
It's
Oh,
Ford.
don't forget James Bond's cars.
Oh yeah.
DB5.
They're quite iconic.
All
aren't
of
they?
Mad Max.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
Yep,
it's
Mad
very
Max.
true.
Lightning McQueen.
Lightning McQueen. The cars that they go in Jurassic Park for a little bit.
Oh my God, the Jeep Wranglers. Yeah, or the Ford Explorers. Sorry.
The Wayne's World car.
Oh yeah.
No,
I was going to say the Iron Giant, but that's not a car, is it?
that's not a car. That's a robot. Oh, what about what was that film I watched? And it was terrible. Maximum Overdrive.
Oh my
It
God.
was directed by Stephen King.
When he was at the height of his cocaine
Yeah,
powers.
and
Yeah.
the film is not very good, but it's
Is it
about
Emilio
cars.
Estevez?
I think it is.
Yeah.
We forgot the bus from Speed.
The bus from Speed. Yeah.
Now we're clutching the straw.
I mean, that's a bus.
That's a perfect way to end this episode. Unfortunately, there won't be an episode on Wednesday with the game because somebody forgot to make the quiz. We won't mention who, Jimmy.
I often forget everything.
But that's okay because we are very busy people. And at the end of the day, we are 4 struggling filmmakers.
Hey.
So yeah, we'll see you next week instead of next Wednesday. Have a good week and we'll see you very soon.
Drive
In a bit,
safe.
lads. Bye, 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 bye. Have you heard Vin Diesel try to say the movies?
No.
No.
I'll see if I can get it up for a second.
Movies.
The movies.
Nothing like it when the lights go down and you're at the
Movies.
Well, you take it out and you're back and roll.